Hey everyone, welcome to different configurations which can be specified for testng.xml or a base XML file. Let's get started. When it comes to package level configurations in an XML file, the build which we have used is a Maven build for the framework. And then in that particular build, we have multiple instances where we can specify the package level configurations. For example, in a pom.xml file, you can specify the package level configurations for each and every packages which is being installed in the XML file. So, for example, if you take the build details and the Maven details which we need to install or testng.xml details which we need to install, you can specify the version of which it can be installed, and you can even mention the target version which you need to install, or you can even specify the basic versions whichever is required. So this is how you specify the package level configurations for a pom.xml file. And when it comes to class level configurations, if you consider a testng file, we can specify basic annotations which is used inside a testng XML file, that is at the rate test, at the rate parameters. All these things can be used for specifying the class level configurations for a XML file. By specifying at the rate test and giving the priority and mentioning it enable equals true or false, we can specify the test run to accept this priority, and then if it is mentioned as true, execute it. If it is mentioned as false, please don't execute it. This is how you specify the priority and whether you need to enable or disable that particular piece of test case. And when you consider the parameters, if you what is XML parameterization? So if you take testng XML file as an example, so parameterization allows you to add the particular set of values at any time in the execution. So during the runtime, you can even add the parameterization. By this adding the parameterization in the framework becomes a very key point wherein it acts as a generic method where uh, instead of adding it everywhere. So for example, if you want to add a particular piece of pin code in all the places of the framework, instead of adding that in a framework, if you during the runtime, if you give a parameters and then accept it during the runtime, the same value can be passed to multiple places by using the parameters of that particular pin code. So in your before test method, if we use at the rate parameters as test1 and test2, and then in the testng.xml file, if we mention the parameter name as test1 and the value for that is 2, and then test2 and the value for that is 3, this can be specified, and whenever the test execution is being performed, if we specify the parameter as test1, automatically this value of 1 is being taken, and the execution continues with the specified parameters. So this is how you do the parameterization for testng.xml file. Okay, and when we consider the property classes, why is the property class defined in any framework? So property class makes us, instead of handling the code or editing the code every time, if we have a class file where it consider only the properties, it is easy to edit the property file rather than editing the code. So this is the key important thing in any framework which we need to consider. So if we have a property class, easy to identify and then edit the elements and then components inside the property class. So if we consider this particular piece of property class, whichever is given in the example, so platform name, if you want to execute it for Android, you use Android, or if you want to execute it for iOS, you just directly specify iOS. So this is how you can change the parameters every time if there is an execution. Instead of going to the code and then changing the Android and iOS details, we can directly simply use this particular piece of property file to edit that particular piece of code. So yeah, moving on to the next topic, that is global parameters. What is global parameters? Global parameters are the constants across the data factory that can be consumed by a pipeline in any expression. So if you specify one particular piece of a parameter as a global, so consider this example. wherein we have specified this particular parameter as a global parameter. This test 1 and test 2 is a global parameter. This particular example helps us to understand if we have specified the test as the global parameter, it will, while executing the complete suit, it will come back and then take the values only specified for this particular test. If if at all, if we require a parameter for a particular set of test case, you can specify the parameter only for this inside at the rate test annotation. So by doing this, it will be specific to that particular class. If you want the global wise parameterization, you need to specify the parameter at before even starting the particular class.